Hey guys, so I've been working on this episode with Ruth Bader Ginsburg and the Supreme Court nomination. Then this happened on CNN, and the number one thing I need to point out is that Don Lemon, whatever you want to call him, worst journalist of the year, he is a mouth puppet for this group, and he has put forth subject matter after subject matter after subject matter from the tip report. And in this conversation, he does a very important one, and that is the Electoral College. He's coming for the Electoral College already, and he's inserting into the collective unconscious the idea of blowing up the entire political system. This is a very serious interaction. Chris Cuomo is part of this. Understand, he is not your friend. He's not arguing from your side of things. Don't, because you're going to feel like, yeah, that makes sense. This entire exchange is set up from the beginning. It's meant to make you feel a certain kind of way. So fight your feelings and watch it. All right, let's go over it real quick, and then we'll just get to the regular episode that I put together.
Democrats were in control of the Senate right now, and Trump was president, and he wanted to nominate a justice. What do you think they'd say?
Well, I think they do the same thing they did in 2016. They do it. That's what
right.
they did.
That's my point.
That's
why
did.
Nobody cares what the Democrats are saying now.
No. I think they do exactly what they did in 2016. You can say what you want about Democrats. Democrats usually wet the bed. They're not as strategic when it comes to politics.
You think they give Trump a justice after what happened with Merrick Garland?
I think yes. I think they abide by. Well, it's different because. Democrats did not make the promise. See, you keep comparing things that aren't equal. Democrats did not make the same promise in 2016.
It wasn't a promise.
Democrats were on the other side. They said...
It wasn't a promise.
Okay.
It was a BS rationale to explain what they were doing to deprive them of power.
Semantics. They didn't allow his nominee to go through. They wouldn't even have a hearing. They said, we're not going to do it. So that wasn't Democrats doing that. That was Republicans doing it. And if you come on this side, I don't know what Democrats would do.
Democrats back in 2016.
It would not mean that they were being hypocritical if they did it.
They are being hypocritical. It's not the same.
Chris, it would be the same. They would have the same stance.
No,
Democrats.
They don't. Klobuchar
Chris.
and Biden back then, not Biden, Klobuchar and others back then were saying, hey, you've got to have a full bench. You got to have a full bench.
Because of what the Republicans did in 2016. Democrats didn't do that in 2016. If Democrats actually wanted the person that was in office now to do it, they would be making the same choice. They would be consistent with their principles.
I don't know that.
Yeah.
And I think that most people don't agree with that idea, which is why they don't care about the difference between left and right. See, until you have a group of people that decide to consistently be better than what they reject, you're going to have people in the exact position they are right now, Don, which is no matter what happens, everybody sticks with their team.
We're going to have to blow up the entire system. And you know what we're going to have to do?
No, I don't know.
You know what we're going to? Yes, what you have to do?
You just got to vote.
Honestly, from what your closing argument is, you're going to have to get rid of the Electoral College. Because the people...
I don't see it.
Because the minority in this country decides who the judges are and they decide who the president is.
But you need a constitutional amendment to do that.
And if Joe Biden wins, Democrats can stack the courts and they can do that amendment and they can get it passed.
Well, you need two-thirds vote in the Congress and three-quarters of the state legislatures.
They may be able to do that.
Maybe.
Interesting that Chris Cuomo knows more about the Constitution. In case you ever wondered who knew the absolute least and the second least about the Constitution, it solves that. But you listen carefully to what Don Lemon is saying. You can see he's been given the talking point to pull the trigger on the idea of blowing up the Electoral College and the idea of having to blow up the entire political system. Dangerous stuff coming out of CNN. All right, guys, we'll go into the regular episode. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the circus. There is an enormous circus gathering around this next Supreme Court nominee. We're going to go over lots of that. And we're going to laugh at Mother Jones beating themselves at their own argument with their own sources. It's always fun to watch. And then I've got a few episodes coming out shortly within maybe the next few days about the CDC and the banks, man. The banks. I tell you guys right now, before we even get into all that, the reason why they all kind of act the same way, both sides of the aisle, it's because, you guys, they're all getting blackmailed. They're all getting money. The money's being laundered through all the same ways, all the same vehicles, and they're all caught, mutually caught. It's just as clear as day that that's the situation we have in the political stratosphere, and not enough people have made it into our political system that aren't part of this blackmail, mutually assured destruction bullcrap that's going on and has been going on. I would say probably Poppy Bush. Who knows? Obviously, there were other types of shenanigans before him, but this satanic skull and bones blackmail-based thing, to me, in my mind, it's always been Poppy Bush's baby. But regardless, we in America know what politicians are. Politicians, they're gonna politician. That basically just means they're gonna lie. It's so funny to me because they never call the lies out on some people. And then on others, they call every single lie out every single time. These people, they're all on the same team. They want you to have this feeling when you see certain people. It's like the good guys and the bad guys in a wrestling game. And honestly, politics in America is so damn similar to wrestling, pro wrestling, that it's not even funny, actually. And Trump actually was in the wrestling. So in 2016, when Scalia met his fate, and some say Scalia sleeps with the fishes, but again, I digress. Scalia passed, and Obama wanted to nominate. There were arguments made both ways, obviously, like there are now. Currently, what the media is enjoying doing is showing certain Republicans 180ing on the topic, which I don't know how effective that is. A lot of people in America are going to look at that and be like, well, that was because it was Obama and they're Republicans. It just makes a lot of sense, and we've been conditioned to expect it, so I don't know how effective it's going to be pointing it out. Like, how effective is pointing out a politician lying when they all lie? I don't know. But it's funny that Mother Jones believes that there should be no nomination until the next president. Of course, in their own article, they include a fact-checking source that argues against them. It's kind of fun. We'll look at it. Let's look at it. A long list of GOP senators who promised not to confirm a Supreme Court nominee during an election year. It's likely just a matter of when, not if, President Donald Trump nominates a replacement for the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who died Friday of pancreatic cancer. He held a ceremony at the White House just last week to unveil a short list of future nominees. And at the same time, the rest of the country was processing the news of Ginsburg's death, and apparently oblivious Trump was on stage at a rally in Minnesota talking about nominating Senator Ted Cruz to the bench. Now, that is completely unfair. He had no idea that she had died, and as soon as she died, and he found out, his reaction was an actual human reaction. That is a completely different situation from when Biden found out and came out and read a script and started already talking about the politics of the situation. I made a video just about that. I don't think I put it out. You know what? Maybe we'll watch it right now. What a learning experience watching these two men respond to Ruth Bader Ginsburg's passing is. Biden is speaking about politics and power like he always is. Ruth Bader Ginsburg reportedly wrote a note that it was her dying wish, that another president nominate somebody to her slot. Chuck Schumer's already hit the Senate floor decrying a Trump nomination. These people are so obsessed with politics. It's unhealthy. It's power. Just listen to the difference in the reactions from these two men.
There is no doubt, let me be clear, that the Voters should pick the president, and the president should pick the justice for the Senate to consider. This was the position of the Republican Senate took in 2016 when there were almost 10 months to go before the election. That's the position the United States Senate must take today, and the election is only 46 days off.
The difference being, of course, Obama was not up for re-election. He had no possible way of being re-elected, and Trump does.
I think the fastest justice ever confirmed was 47 days, and the average is closer to 70 days.
He makes his argument for why they should not nominate a replacement during his reaction to her passing. And like I said, the sick thing about this is she would have supported his statement because politics and power is that important to these people. Now, I don't know if I'm going to get a copyright strike for playing Trump's natural reaction because there happened to be a song playing in the background at the event. But keep in mind, he had been up on stage for 2 hours while this news was breaking. He had no idea, and this was his honest reaction, opposed to Biden's scripted speech about politics.
She just died? Wow. I didn't know that. You're telling me now for the first time. She led an amazing life.
And you see how he does that? And this is the thing about Donald Trump, is that he takes in this information, he formulates his response in his brain, you can see him doing it, and he lets go with his truth.
What else can you say? She was an amazing woman. Whether you agreed or not, she was an amazing woman.
Whether you agreed or not, she was an amazing woman.
Led an amazing life. I'm actually sad to hear that. I am sad to hear that. Thank you very much.
At least he was truthful enough to walk away, even though clearly you could hear one of the vultures squawking at him already about the Republicans in the Senate. This had evolved over a couple of hours while he was at the event, and so he obviously wasn't going to answer any questions anyways. But these people, they're like petulant children with him. And to get Biden's full remarks is actually kind of difficult. You have to piece together like a million different videos. One of the other things that I did find in a different recording of his speech is this. Check this out.
It's hard to believe it was my honor to preside over her confirmation hearing.
That's right. Let's hear that again.
It's hard to believe it was my honor to preside over her confirmation hearing.
Now, if Joe Biden remembers correctly, and that's a big if, he presided over her confirmation hearing. Could there not be anything more wrong with a politician who has been involved in this system for so long that they oversaw the confirmation hearing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who has just died at 86 years old? It says it all. And why are they doing the same things with Biden that they did with Hillary? It's like there's this health question. They're hiding him like they hid her. He didn't just come out and talk about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. He didn't speak about something he remembered from the confirmation hearings or anything like that. He came out and read his speech, just like Hillary Clinton used to come out and be scripted, and couldn't go off script. It's the exact same candidate. And yet Trump gets hit with it, curveball, walking into the plane, gives an honest response, and talks about the woman's life. Biden comes out with a written response talking about the nomination process. That's the thing that's even crazy about it. They went and thought about what they should talk about and came back with the nomination process. Trump on his own in a split second just said she was an amazing woman. Maybe, just perhaps, for a night, we could not talk about the nomination process. But that's a big mistake. Trump still doesn't understand where he's at sometimes. We don't need another Joe Biden, you guys. And I say another Joe Biden because we've had a bunch of them, and we narrowly avoided one in 2016. Hillary was a Joe Biden. Obama was a Joe Biden. Bush Jr. was a Joe Biden. Al Gore was a Joe Biden. Bush Sr., Joe Biden. We don't need them anymore. We don't need them in positions of power. For good or bad or better or worse, we need people who will just give an honest reaction.
She just died? Wow. I didn't know that. You're telling me now for the first time. She led an amazing life. What else can you say? She was an amazing woman. Whether you agreed or not, she was an amazing woman who led an amazing life. I'm actually sad to hear that. I am sad to hear that. Thank you very much.
She led an amazing life.
This was the position of the Republican Senate took in 2016 when there were almost 10 months to go before the election. It's hard to believe, but it was my honor to preside over her confirmation hearing.
It's a strange thing that the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg happens to juxtapose the differences between the people and the energy coming from each side of this. And it's something that I'm really trying to get people to come along with, because the two-party system is collapsing and everybody needs to get with the program. The two parties of Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell, those two parties, they're collapsing. And what are the third and fourth parties going to be? I don't know, but it's not going to be the Libertarian Party and the Green Party. There's already one new one forming. I guess you would call it MAGA. There's going to be another party too. Nobody in America with the ability to think logically supports this old system now that we finally see as an old system. We see Hillary Clinton compared to Trump. We see Joe Biden compared to Trump. It was much harder when we were watching Romney compared to Obama, McCain compared to Obama, Al Gore compared to George Bush. It's very hard to see the difference. There is no real difference. And that was what we were caught up in, and that's why everybody said 2 wings, 1 bird. But, in comes Trump, and the difference is plain as day. And people are choosing the other. Whatever it is now, I don't want it. You have the very far left who's becoming very progressive, and you've got like the Jimmy Dore progressive side of things, and you have MAGA. But Republican and Democrat, let's go, guys. Get on board. We're over it. We're done with that. Stop trying to hold up the old system. Patch it together, make it reusable and renewed. Stop it. Let it collapse, build it back up. New system. Okay, I don't know if we watched it or not. I'm going to decide that later, but we're going to move on with Mother Jones. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who had previously gone around the country telling donors that Ginsburg's death would be his party's October surprise, pledged Friday that President Trump's nominee will receive a vote on the floor of the United States Senate. It's a far cry from 4 years ago, when this same situation unfolded in 2016, after Justice Antonin Scalia died in February of that year. Many Senate Republicans, most of whom are still in the chamber, drew what purported to be a principled line in the sand, insisting that it was too close to the presidential election for President Barack Obama to choose a replacement. It should be up to the voters to decide in November, they argued. Some of them even invoked the words of then Vice President Joe Biden, who as a senator several decades earlier had offered similar logic. They called it the Biden rule. Biden, in 1992, was not responding to any actual vacancy, but merely a hypothetical one. When Obama nominated Merrick Garland anyway, no one led the charge as stubbornly as McConnell. Let's just stop and think about that. This writer just went paragraphs on about how the Republicans were saying that Obama shouldn't nominate, and then just kind of passing at the beginning of a paragraph is like, and Obama nominated someone anyway. Isn't his entire article over now? Senate Republicans were kicking and screaming, and Obama nominated someone anyway. We are now in the situation where Senate Democrats are kicking and screaming, and Donald Trump is going to nominate a SCOTUS anyway. This has happened 20-some times. The vast majority of those times, the Senate had the majority, and when the Senate and the president were of the same party, nominee went through most of the time. When the Senate and the president were not from the same party, it did not go so well, obviously. But that's what the checks and balances are there for. The Democrats are salty here because the Republicans have control of the Senate. You would think, but we don't know because there are Republicans in sheep's clothing running around the Senate. So let's watch the stand by McConnell.
The Senate announced weeks ago remains about a principle and not a person. The Senate will appropriately revisit the matter when it considers the qualifications of the nominee the next president nominates, whoever that might be.
The Supreme Court justice is decide next year.
We'd fill it.
And that's politics, right? Or am I wrong? Are Americans freaked out by that? I don't know. But it wasn't just McConnell. This was the default position at the time. Here's what a not comprehensive look at what 17 active Republican senators said. Let's just skip past that because we realize that the people from the opposing party are going to be kicking and screaming as the president nominates a nominee. Luckily, the president last time nominated somebody anyway. He told Senate Republicans kick rocks, and then the Senate did not vote to confirm that nominee. That's the check. That's the balance. Of course, at the time, the Republicans were arguing the exact opposite position that they're arguing now. I stopped here at Ted Cruz because, you know, if you know anything about politics, you know Ted Cruz is a wordsmith and he is an expert on the Constitution. Says, it has been 80 years since a Supreme Court vacancy was nominated and confirmed in an election year. There is a long tradition that you don't do this in an election year. I was a little bit surprised because it's not typical Ted Cruz. So I went to the source. I found an article by factcheck.org that completely annihilates Cruz and Rubio in 2016. Hence, it annihilates the Democrats' argument in 2020. Senators Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz distort the history of Supreme Court nominees in arguing that President Obama should not be allowed to fill the vacancy left by the death of Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. They say there's a, quote, long tradition and a, quote, historical precedent for presidents not to fill a Supreme Court vacancy in their last year in office or during an election year. But a lack of opportunity rather than a long-standing tradition has been the reason most previous presidents did not make such appointments. The unexpected death of Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, who was found dead at a resort in Texas, feel free to dig into that, on February 13th, immediately triggered a partisan dispute over his possible replacement. On the day of Scalia's death, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell issued a statement saying this vacancy should not be filled until we have a new president. Obama responded by saying, the Constitution is pretty clear about what is supposed to happen, saying he will nominate someone and he expects the Senate will consider his nominee. Historically, this has not been viewed as a question, Obama said. We should start by saying the Senate, under the Constitution, has the power of advice and consent on presidential nominees, and Senate leaders in both parties, particularly in recent years, have been accused of delaying and even denying judicial appointments in election years when the other party controls the White House. As recapped in reports by the nonpartisan Congressional Research Services in 2008 during Bush's final year in office and in 2012 during Obama's re-election campaign. But the election year judicial disputes are usually over circuit and district court judges. It is rare that Supreme Court vacancies occur in an election year, let alone the final year of a president. Nevertheless, Rubio and Cruz made broad claims about the Supreme Court precedents and traditions on the Sunday talk shows. Let's take Cruz's statement first. He's right, or close to right, that it has been 80 years since the Supreme Court nominee was nominated and confirmed in an election year. It has actually been 76 years, but here's the missing context. There have been only 6 outstanding court vacancies in an election year since 1900, and in every case the vacancy was filled. Amy Howe, a lawyer who is the editor of SCOTUS blog, detailed all instances of Supreme Court vacancies in election years going back to 1900. A review of her research shows that there have been only 6 presidents in the last 116 years who had court vacancies remaining in an election year. Only one, Reagan, wasn't running for re-election. 4 of those 6 presidents had their choices. In the words of Cruz, quote, nominated and confirmed in an election year. The last was Roosevelt in 1940, when he nominated Frank Murphy on January 4th, 1940, to replace Pierce Butler, who died November 16th, 1939. Murphy was confirmed January 16, 1940, by a friendly Democratic Senate. That's 76 years ago, close to what Cruz said. As we have written, the Senate in an election year confirmed President Reagan's nomination of Anthony Kennedy to the Supreme Court in his last year in office in 1988. But in that case, the vacancy occurred in June 1987, when Lewis F. Powell Jr. retired. So he does not meet Cruz's standard of nominated and confirmed in an election year. The historical record does not reveal any instances since at least 1900 of the president failing to nominate and or the Senate failing to confirm a nominee in a presidential election year because of the impending election. In that period, there were several nominations and confirmations of justices during presidential election years. So understand that this is the media arguing against Rubio and Cruz in 2016, but making our argument in 2020. And I think it's hilarious that this article at factcheck.org ends with this final paragraph. Cruz and Rubio are free to express their opinion that the Senate should not take up a Supreme Court nominee in Obama's last year, just as Obama is free to disagree. But the senators twist the facts when they cite precedent and a long tradition to support their position. They're showing these videos of Republicans who are talking and they have the opposite position as they do now. But right here, it shows you that in 2016, Democrats had the opposite position as they do now as well. No one side is better than the other. They're both flip-flopping. You could find Mitch McConnell's videos and compare them, and they would be exact opposite positions. And you could do the exact same thing for Chuck Schumer. That's what I mean where I say I don't know how much of effect it's going to have showing them taking the opposite position as they have now. But as this factcheck.org article notes, anybody saying that Trump shouldn't nominate and then the Senate shouldn't confirm his nomination in the last year, they don't know what they're talking about. And if you say there's a long tradition and a historical precedent for presidents not to fill a Supreme Court vacancy in their last year in office or during an election year, you're wrong. There is historical precedent. So I'm going to be very interested to see not only how this plays out, but, you know, the media now is partisan. It takes partisan positions like it did here. And that's the interesting thing about the media is if you want to fight the media, then you can use the media against itself in this very way. And the fact that the Republicans have changed their minds doesn't surprise me at all. But the fact that the media should shake everyone's core. But thank goodness they didn't delete this and archive it, right? But nobody ever takes the time to actually read the sources, and that's the problem. Understand, the only difference here is the same party has control of the presidency and the Senate. That's why there's going to be such a kick up. But there's nothing that the Democrats can do. Nancy Pelosi was talking about arrows in her quiver, and I'm telling you right now, anything that they're going to do would cause us a constitutional nightmare, which I think might be what they're planning on. Who knows? Would I sound entirely insane to you if I said that Ginsburg's death might only be like the second or third move in a 10-move play? We'll have to see how this all plays out. But here's the thing that bothers me. Again, the media is taking a position in that. Because when I read to you the beginning of the Mother Jones article, it said that he was on stage apparently unaware. No, actually unaware. And then when he got off the stage and they told him, his reaction was human. And it had nothing in it about filling vacancies or Senate votes. It had nothing about that in there. That's why I wanted to show you guys the differences and compare them. This is what we're up against. The Republican and Democrat Party have been subverted, but the Democrat Party has been subverted so badly that it's a shell of its former self. And the reason why is because, like Yuri says, you must be open to subversion. It must be a two-way street. The Soviets could not be subverted because the media was not allowed to show opposing positions. If you resist that, then you are not open to subversion. And I read The Naked Communists, one of those goals was to infiltrate one or both parties. And of course, the Democrat Party would be the first to go, and it would go the furthest, because Democrats already naturally have a liberal leaning. That created the two-way street that Yuri talks about, where people were able to be subverted. The conservative party has been harder to subvert because it's not as open to new ideas and new things. This is what saved the party. But make no mistake about it, the Republican Party has been subverted too. It is going to take many generations of patriotic Americans to turn America back around, if that's what happens. And it starts at the home, built on God, it's built on country. And those are the things, the timeless things, the eternal things that prevent you from being subverted into hating yourself or hating someone else or committing acts of violence. When you have a strong foundation of God, country, family, God, family, country, it doesn't matter. You are not open to it. I'm sorry, but I'm not open to that subversion. Go try another target. And that doesn't mean that we all don't screw up, because we do. And I screw up probably more than the average person because I'm out there trying to figure things out, like screwing up intentionally. So Mother Jones writes a giant article about how Senate Republicans have flip-flopped on the idea of whether or not a president can nominate SCOTUS in his last year. Note that Obama did nominate his Supreme Court justice. The Senate did not vote to confirm. That's the checks and balances. That's the way the system works. Now, it is the same right for them to nominate and vote on a Supreme Court nominee. And we found the argument for our side in this Mother Jones article, where they include a source on Ted Cruz's comment, and then factcheck.org proceeds to savage Rubio and Cruz's positions because in 2016 their positions were hard to take. They were wrong. That's what I keep telling you about politics. Everybody knows. They were trying the best argument they had, even though they knew course precedent was not on their side. And factcheck.org fact-checked them on that. I wonder what factcheck.org will do about the opposite party now saying the exact same things, because now it's the Democrats screaming that this has not happened in 80 years. It's very interesting to me. Their point is well taken in 2016. Obama had every right to nominate a Supreme Court justice, just like Trump does now. And the Senate has every right to confirm him. Thank you, factcheck.org. And thank you, Mother Jones, for linking that source to Ted Cruz's comment. We appreciate it. And the only other thing I have to say about this whole Supreme Court nomination situation is that if it goes forward with a 4-4 split, and then there are problems involving the count and the transition, then having a 4-4 split Supreme Court could really become problematic. Not only has this whole situation complicated the election, but it's also complicated Trump's position in that if he doesn't get somebody nominated, the 4-4 tie at the Supreme Court could come back and bite them in litigation after the election. Because remember, all these moves are based off of the tip report. All these moves are based off of taking the election from Trump regardless of what the numbers are, if the numbers fail them. It's a crazy world out there, guys. I'm going to be covering this because once he announces the name and then the Senate confirmation hearings, my channel is called Circuses, so we will be covering that circus. Like, share, sub. If you'd like to buy me a cup of coffee, you can hit my PayPal link or Venmo below. I always put that stuff in the pinned comment. Thanks for all your support, guys. Catch you later.